Good morning, Hockey Nuts. Let's take a look at the games for today. Today is Saturday, February 17th. There's a number of games on the schedule. I've actually got them right back here on the board behind me. So let's go ahead and talk about them. Okay, I've rearranged the camera a little bit so that it is showing a close-up of my whiteboard. I hope it comes in pretty good, but let's go ahead and talk about the games. There's actually a really nice spread of games today. We got starting at 1 o'clock Eastern all the way to 10 o'clock Eastern time. So first game of the day, 1 p.m., LA at Buffalo. LA coming in at 30-22-5, 5-5-0 in their last 10. Buffalo coming in at 17-30-11, 4-4-2 in their last 10. Obviously Buffalo's not going to make the playoffs, so they're really only playing for pride at this point. LA is fighting for their playoff lives. Right now they're on the outside looking in, and they've got to make a big push here to get this game taken care of. This is a potential trap game. Last week, Buffalo came into Boston and beat Boston in a game that really Boston didn't necessarily need, but they they fell into that trap of thinking that Buffalo would be an easy team to beat, and they ended up beating Boston. But this time around, they're in Buffalo. LA's out here on an East Coast swing, and yeah, they definitely need this game. So look for LA to come out. Okay, our next game, I've got Anaheim and Minnesota. And this game here is very intriguing to me because Minnesota is sitting in that 8th seed in the West. Anaheim is sitting in 9th. So all of this stuff right here, these records, really doesn't matter. Because in this game you have two teams that are fighting for their playoff lives. They both need points very badly, and you're going to see a playoff atmosphere in this game. So this game here, if you want to watch a playoff quality game, this is the game right here. Next game, another 2 o'clock game. Rangers at Ottawa. Rangers 27-26-5. Ottawa 20-27-9. Both teams well out of the playoff picture in the East. This game here is between two teams that are definitely on the outside of the playoff picture. Neither one of them really has a realistic chance of getting back in. In fact, there's a lot of rumors surrounding both teams in terms of players that are going to be possibly moved. The biggest name with the Rangers, Ryan McDonough. Biggest name with the Senators, Erik Karlsson. Although the trade of Dion Phaneuf earlier this week with the Senators leads me to believe that the Senators are definitely just trying to make room in order to re-sign Erik Karlsson. So I'll be surprised now that they've moved Dion Phaneuf along. I'll be surprised if they go ahead and move Erik Karlsson. But anyway, this is a game that doesn't have a whole lot of intrigue to me, just in the fact that both teams are on the outside looking in. I certainly will. Of these two games, I will certainly watch this one more than this one, just because these are two potential playoff teams there. All right, next game you've got at 4 p.m. Eastern. You've got the Oilers and the Coyotes. Another game where two teams both having horrible seasons. The Oilers are at 23-29-4. Coyotes are at 16-32-10. Although the Coyotes have played a lot better in recent weeks. They're 5-4-1 in their last 10. So it's something to look out for there. Obviously both teams aren't going to make the playoffs in this case. You definitely want to see some possible stuff there. Both teams will be sellers at the deadline, although I haven't really heard a whole lot about the Coyotes in terms of individual players that might be on the move. I have heard a lot about the Oilers. A lot of talk around Boston that Patrick Maroon may be on the trading block for Edmonton, which I personally wouldn't want to see as a Bruins fan. Patrick Maroon coming, because he just seems like, the Bruins got rid of Milan Lucic a couple of years ago, and Maroon just seems to be like a similar style of player. And the Bruins, as well as they're playing, I'm not sure why they would make a move like that to get the team that the Bruins have has been built around speed and just using their all-around skill and speed, and bringing in a guy like Maroon, you're essentially slowing the team down. So I don't understand these rumors coming out of Boston with Patrick Maroon, but I guess we'll find out what it is. All right, so those are your afternoon games, those 4 on top. The next one on this corner over here is Montreal at Vegas. Montreal coming in at 22-28-7, 3-6-1 in their last 10. Vegas coming in at 38-15-4, 6-4 in their last 10. Vegas has won 2 in a row. I don't see this as much of a game to get too excited about. Vegas is pretty secure in their spot in the playoffs. Montreal is pretty secure in the fact that they won't be making the playoffs. So to me, this game won't get a whole lot of attention from me, just because it's just not a marquee matchup in terms of this evening. This one here, next game, 7 o'clock start as well. Jersey at Tampa Bay. 29-20-8 for Jersey. 39-16-3 for Tampa Bay. Jersey coming off a couple of divisional wins there. They seem to be heating up at the right time. They're about ready to get Corey Schneider back in net, which should make them even stronger. And Tampa Bay, they're well secure in their playoff spot. They're not going anywhere. Although they may drop out of first place if they don't keep going. The 6-4 record, the teams behind them are playing much better, and we'll get to those teams. But the gap between 3rd and 4th in the Atlantic Division is so large now that the 3 teams that are in that top 3 are essentially not going anywhere. It's going to take a monumental collapse for them to fall out of the playoff race. And so Tampa, as far as playoffs are concerned, are definitely in. As far as the division is concerned, they're in the fight for their lives because the Atlantic Division has just gotten all crunched up. So Jersey, I expect, will come out flying because they need points bad. They're basically sitting. New Jersey is sitting at 66 points. They're just barely into that playoff picture. They're only 3 points up on the 9th place team, Columbus, and Carolina. So Jersey needs wins just like any of the other teams that are in that playoff picture. All right, next game. Toronto at Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh right now, they've won 3 in a row. They're 8-1-1 in their last 10. They're 33-22-4. Toronto's at 35-19-5, and they are also 9-1 in their last 10, and they've won 5 in a row. So these are 2 teams that are white hot right now. I expect this to be a very good game. The thing that's scary for me is that Pittsburgh right now, as well as they're playing, they seem to be peaking right now. Or they're certainly putting all things together. They were struggling. They weren't struggling for wins earlier in the year, but they were just kind of floating along at just above the 500 record. And they were outside the playoffs looking in at one point for a couple of weeks there. But they seem to have gotten things turned around there in Pittsburgh, and they've become the dangerous team that won them the last 2 Stanley Cups. So I really would like to see Toronto beat up on Pittsburgh, because I think fans outside of Pittsburgh would agree with me that we're tired of seeing Pittsburgh winning at this point. We just don't want to see it anymore. So sorry, Pittsburgh fans, but I'm rooting for Toronto in this one. Detroit at Nashville. Detroit coming in at 23-24-9. Nashville coming in at 34-13-9. Nashville's on the top of their game right now. They are probably the best team in the West, in my opinion. And Detroit is going to miss the playoffs again this season. as they continue to try to rebuild their team. But Detroit is going into that madhouse of an arena that Nashville has, and I fully expect Nashville to come out with the win on this one, just because Nashville seems to be firing on all cylinders right now. All right, our 8:30 game, Washington at Chicago. If we were to look at this game last season, I would definitely say this is a marquee game and a potential Stanley Cup preview. But 1 year later, Chicago is well out of the playoff picture. They're 24-26-8 coming into the game. They're 2-7-1 in their last 10, and they've lost 6 in a row. Washington coming in is 33-17-7, 5-2-3 in their last 10. And Washington has been kind of streaky this year. They started off the year kind of slow, caught on fire for a while there, climbed into the top of their standings, and then lately have been sputtering a little bit. 5-2-3 is not exactly a record to write home about, but they still maintain that top spot in the Metro Conference or Metro Division. They have a 3-point lead on the Pittsburgh Penguins there, but Pittsburgh is charging hard, so you get a win out of Pittsburgh and a loss out of Washington tonight, and all of a sudden you've got a 1-point race there in the Metro. But yeah, the whole thing with Chicago, I know Corey Crawford's been hurt. That's been a big factor with their issues, because Forsberg has not been. I mean, quite frankly, he's just not Corey Crawford. So there's that. So yeah, it's just one of those cases where, you know, Chicago's having a down year, and they've got to get things retooled. So you may even see Chicago be a seller here at the deadline, but don't expect any of their high-paid, high-profile players to be on the move. Jonathan Taves, Patrick Kane, they're not going anywhere. These aren't the type of players that you're going to see move from Chicago. It's going to be more your third-liners, your fourth-liners, those kind of guys. The guys that they want to use to fill in the roster. So yeah, I fully expect Washington to come out on top on that one. All right. We have 2 late games tonight. One at 10, the other one at 10. Boston is on their first. They've had 3 days off. They've got their first game of the Western Canada trip that Boston has to do now. So that Western Canada is your Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton. So Boston's going to be playing all 3 of those teams in the next 4 nights. So busy week for them. But they've had 3 days off. They should be well rested. And they have 3 more days off after those 3 games. So yeah. But tonight you've got Boston at Vancouver in a rematch of the 2011 Stanley Cup Final. And Boston coming in at 35-12-8, 8-2 in their last 10. And Vancouver coming in at 22-30-6. And they're 3-7 in their last 10. They've lost 2 in a row. Boston's won 2 in a row. Vancouver has shown at times that they can be a fairly decent team, although lately they've kind of sputtered a little bit. Vancouver obviously is not going to make the playoffs this year. They'll be sellers at the deadline, but again, you're not going to see them move any of their young studs that they've got. Brock Besser is probably going to be at least a finalist for the Rookie of the Year, if not win it. And he'll be a player to watch in that game. Boston, on the other hand, had that 18-game point streak, or 18 games without a regulation loss, and then since then they've continued to roll. They have lost a couple of regulation games, but they're continuing to win the vast majority of their games. And right now, the 12 losses that they have is at this point the least number of regulation losses in the NHL. So they're firing on all cylinders. My only worry with the Bruins, being a Bruins fan, of course, is that they're peaking too early. I've always continued to say that, and let's hope that that's not the case. And the last game of the night, you've got Calgary at home against Florida. Florida coming in 25-23-6. Calgary coming in at 30, 20, and 8. Both teams are actually fighting for their playoff lives. Florida still believes that they can make the playoffs, and they're a long shot at this point, but they are playing well right now. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They've won 2 in a row, and they're a dangerous team for the Calgary Flames to deal with tonight. Calgary also is in the fight for their playoff lives. They're in a little bit better spot than Florida is. Florida right now is 8 points out of a playoff spot. So if Florida is going to make the playoffs, and they still believe they can, 6-4 is not going to be enough. They're going to need a few weeks of 8-2. That's the kind of hockey that Florida's going to need to play to get back into it. But they're one of the few teams in the East that are kind of well outside the playoff picture that still believes that they can make the playoffs. But on the Western side, Calgary right now is actually sitting in the 3rd spot in the Pacific Division. So they are sitting in a playoff spot. But it's not a very safe one. They're only 1 point above Anaheim. Anaheim's the 9th place team right now. So if Anaheim wins tonight, Calgary loses, Calgary's out of that playoff spot. They drop all the way outside. Instead of being in the 3rd place in the Pacific, they drop all the way to 9th. If that happens, they get a win, they get a loss. So it's an interesting game, this one here. So that's it. That's your wrap up for Saturday, and I should say the 17th. See, I did this board late last night, and I had the day right and got the date wrong. So, yeah, Saturday the 17th. Those are your slate of games. So, I'm going to enjoy it. I hope you do too. But these early games, I'm probably going to miss the vast majority of them because I'm heading down to Charlotte tonight to go watch the Charlotte Checkers play. So, all right. That's it for tonight. That's it for now. So, enjoy.